Our story takes place in the countryside near the Sea of Galilee. Word had spread about Jesus, the new teacher and healer, and people from all over had come to see him. They had heard of his miracles, his kindness, and his teachings, and now they wanted to see for themselves. By now the crowd had grown to thousands. 5,000 men, not counting women and children. They had all traveled long distances to be there, eager to listen, to find hope, and maybe to witness a miracle. But with the long day drawing on, the people began to feel hungry and tired. Jesus' disciples, those closest to him, noticed this, and they grew worried. They knew there wasn't enough food to feed this crowd. They thought about all these families, parents, children, the elderly, and wondered what they could do. So one of the disciples came to Jesus and suggested, "Let's send the people away so they can go to nearby villages and buy food for themselves." But Jesus had a different plan. He looked at the disciples and said, "No, they don't need to go away. You give them something to eat." This must have sounded impossible to the disciples. How could we feed so many people, they thought. They didn't have nearly enough food or money to buy enough for everyone here. Just then, a young boy stepped forward. He had a small basket with him, and in it were 5 small loaves of bread and 2 fish. Andrew, one of Jesus' disciples, brought the boy to Jesus and said, "Here is a boy with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. But how far will that go among so many?" The boy didn't have much, but he offered what he had, and Jesus accepted it, as if this small amount was exactly what he needed. He turned to his disciples and told them to have the crowd sit down on the grass. The people settled down, sitting in groups, curious and quiet. They watched as Jesus took the small basket with its 5 loaves and 2 fish. He held it up, gave thanks, and then began to break the bread and fish into pieces. Then something incredible happened. As Jesus broke the bread and fish and handed it to his disciples, the food just kept coming. More and more bread, more and more fish, until there was enough for every person to have a share. The crowd was amazed. They were expecting maybe a small bite. But soon every person, every man, woman, and child had enough to eat. People looked around, sharing glances of amazement. They had come hungry and tired, and now they were filled, not just with food, but with wonder. When everyone had eaten, Jesus told his disciples to gather up what was left over, so that nothing is wasted. They went through the crowd, collecting the remaining pieces, and they ended up with 12 baskets full of leftovers, far more than what they had started with. People began to talk among themselves, realizing they had just witnessed something extraordinary. Who else but someone sent by God could turn 5 loaves and 2 fish into a feast for thousands? But this miracle was more than just about feeding people. Jesus wasn't just giving them bread and fish. He was showing them something far greater. Jesus wanted people to know that God's love is abundant, that even a small offering, given with a willing heart, can become more than enough. As Jesus and his disciples continued on, the people were left with full hearts and full bellies, grateful and inspired. This miracle was something they would talk about for years to come, a reminder that God provides, even in ways that seem impossible. The story of Jesus feeding the 5,000 teaches us that kindness, faith, and a little bit of willingness can go a long way. Just as the young boy gave what little he had, we too can bring what we have to God, trusting that he can turn even our small offerings into something extraordinary. When we trust in God's care and share what we have with others, we become part of something far bigger than ourselves. Thank you for listening. Subscribe for more interesting videos.